Halloween Ends is legit the best one from this series. Wait, it's actually by far the worst movie in this series. Nope, it's the best movie I've seen in my life, but actually maybe the worst movie of all time. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little. To be fair, this movie was good in some ways and bad in some ways. It's so-so. But I'm just kidding. Turns out it's the best Halloween movie ever.
What does the audience want to see?
A year ago, Halloween Ends came out, created quite the controversy. People loved it, people hated it, and I for one thought the film had potential, but terrible execution, and I wasn't the biggest fan overall.
Really sucks.
I then forgot about it completely, but as the Halloween franchise is already in a bidding war to make new films or TV shows as soon as possible, good luck with that. I thought I could look back on yet another David Gordon Green Halloween film and complain about it one last time on this channel.
Just let me be mad. Why can't I be mad?
Now, let me preface by saying that I actually think Ends is an improvement over Kills.
Evil dies tonight!
I just think the writing is a little bit better overall. Now, that might also be because each film had a different writing team. Sure, all three of these shit shows have been written by Gordon Green and McBride, writers of Your Highness.
It's up in your vagina.
But Kills also had the involvement of Scott Teems, writer of Insidious, The Red Door, and Exorcist Believer. Halloween Ends, on the other hand, was co-written by Paul Brad Logan, whose writing career is admittedly pretty short, as well as Chris Bernier, who also didn't write much before. So I don't know if this duo got a bit more talented with time, or if Paul and Chris helped them polish the script up and make it better, but some things really worked here. For one, Halloween Ends is simple. No vague on-the-surface criticism of mob mentality, no useless comedic relief characters that don't have anything to do with the story. We don't have 12 different subplots that all lead nowhere. No evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight!
What's more, the kills this time around actually had purpose, just like they did in the original film. Instead of introducing random people left and right that nobody cares about and have them be mindlessly butchered, this time every victim is set up properly, and every kill develops the character of Corey. Each kill infects him more with evil.
Infected.
And to him, their death is his way to keep Allison all for himself, to turn the page for good without anyone or anything in their way. That's actually kind of, sort of good, interesting writing.
I gotta get away from everybody who knows me.
This was an anti-hero character study, a love story, and it explored themes of evil just like the original movie did.
You know there are two kinds of evil.
Evil.
I think Corey is overall a pretty layered and nuanced character. When you think about it, he's similar to both Laurie and Michael, a babysitter with a heavy dose of trauma. Oops, struggling to get past it, but also an evil man in a mask murdering the people of Haddonfield. Instead of being your typical good versus evil movie, here the same character is struggling with both internally. This makes Halloween Ends a rather interesting movie with very interesting ideas. But the thing is, these ideas aren't explored very well.
Yeah.
In fact, this whole movie has potential, but pretty horrible execution. So let's talk about it.
Let's go.
Although Ends did something different and explored interesting ideas, the truth is, it sucks as a Halloween movie, and sucks even more as the end of a trilogy. In fact, all three films feel incoherent and all over the place, with completely different tones and varying quality.
Evil dies tonight!
Again, this might be because of the different writing teams, it might be because Gordon Green had no fucking idea what he was doing from the start, it might be a little bit of everything.
So fucking sad.
But in any case, this doesn't work as the end of a trilogy because everything that's led to this, every character, every plot point, everything is thrown out the window to instead make a love story about Allison and this new character we've never met before. I get that they're doing their own different thing, but if that means the characters you've introduced and set up just don't go anywhere and have no purpose in the final climax of your story, well then, I'm sorry, but that's just bad writing.
Halloween Ends, it's what we all asked for.
Karen, who tragically died at the end of the previous movie is barely even acknowledged here.
And killed my daughter.
We see a picture of her, and then at one point Allison talks about her dead parents.
My parents are dead.
And that's it. It's like she never even existed.
Oh.
The sheriff with the big hat, who I thought was gonna play a role in this trilogy, yeah, he's seen once at the very end, as if they forgot he was even a character. Hawkins flirts with Laurie in a supermarket, and then once more, he's seen at the very end of the film. Total screen time? A minute and a half. They could have developed their blossoming romance.
Cherry blossoms.
But nope, don't have time for that. We have marching band bullies we gotta get to. Lindsay is there in what is pretty much a cameo, playing Taro and serving drinks.
Who do you think Lindsay is now?
Total screen time? A minute and a half. And then they don't even bother bringing her in when Michael is killed. Fucking little Julian is there, but Lindsay isn't? Seems like that would have been a pretty important scene to have her in, wouldn't you think? She's like one of the only OG survivors of Michael. Nah, let's not bother with that. It really feels like they wrote a love story between Corey and Allison, and then they went, okay, who did we have in this series of films? I forget. Hawkins? Yeah, let's throw him in a scene or two, maybe. Lindsay? Sure, let's have her in a scene and then she'll disappear from the movie completely. Again, if you're doing Drive 2.0 with a young woman falling in love with a man destined to be a monster no matter what, that's fine. That's kind of interesting. But if you're making Halloween Ends, well then maybe not so much. It really comes out of nowhere. We got a real case of the new Star Wars trilogy here, with each entry going to wild, entirely different places, but without any coherence whatsoever. Somehow Palpatine is back.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Despite never being mentioned before. Somehow Corey is the main character, despite never being mentioned before. Because this whole thing was never planned ahead. Hell, had 2018 not been profitable enough, there would never have been a trilogy in the first place. Whatever Gordon Green will say in the interviews, it seems abundantly clear that he had no idea where to take each film, and he kinda just made shit up as he went along. Sure, they did their own thing.
In this chapter we find a new villainous character.
It's their Halloween 3. But Halloween 3 didn't have anything to do with Halloween. They treated it as an annual anthology centered around the holiday, but that wasn't related in any way to Michael or Laurie. You can't say Halloween Ends is the new season of The Witch of the franchise, while simultaneously giving in to the Michael versus Laurie fight they've led up to all this time. Just pick one or the other. Granted, credit where credit is due. If you watch Halloween Ends as its own thing that doesn't have anything to do with the other films or this trilogy, it's actually close to being pretty good. A simple, almost art house character study about Haddonfield's new boogeyman, a man whose life fell apart because of a terrible accident. Oops. If Halloween Kills was about Michael infecting Haddonfield,
The suffering Michael caused became an infection.
this one is about how Haddonfield infected this young man. Just like the original movie, it explores the nature of evil. What is it? What causes it? Did the accident and the people of this town create this monster? Or was that evil always in sight, just waiting to emerge? I'm smart! One of the most important scenes of this movie, and also one of the silliest scenes, is near the middle when Michael grabs Corey by the throat. Wait a second, am I watching the right movie? Sure, the editing and the music here is straight out of a Twilight film. The execution of the scene is completely horrible. I hate it. But it is thematically important, as it asks the question, did Michael see the evil within Corey? Did he awaken it? Or did he transfer it, pass it on to him, like chlamydia? It's the classic nature versus nurture debate. What makes a monster? I'm on board with that. On paper, but unfortunately, Halloween Ends is kind of the definition of interesting ideas, but bad execution. There's this common trope with Gordon Green's films where he tends to over-explain everything and forgets that subtlety is usually the best way to convey your message.
Now he's turning us into monsters.
For example, this scene here had a lot of potential, but in my opinion, pretty bad execution.
I'm sorry?
This would have worked so much better with silence and subtlety. Maybe Laurie simply sees her neighbor in the parking lot, all messed up because of Michael. She looks at her, and we just leave it at that. It would show the damage Michael has done to this town, and also show how, despite her best efforts, Laurie could never fully move on from this trauma. It'll forever be part of her life. But David Gordon Green treats his audience like dumb little babies, so he has to throw in this lady yapping about how it's all her fault and spelling everything out.
She cannot speak because of you! And you provoked that man when you should have left him alone.
Lady, what are you talking about? I get that the people of this town are looking to point fingers at people, but to me this felt forced and awkward, and I feel like less would have been more.
He killed her husband and he stabbed her.
There's another similar scene that, in my opinion, would have worked a little better with silence and subtlety, but they instead hit you over the head with it. It's when Corey meets the mom from the beginning, for the first time since the accident. Oops, what an impactful, emotional scene. This poor mother must be waking up every day without getting past the pain. It must kill her. How are we gonna convey that?
I wake up every day and I can't get past the pain. It kills me. You understand?
Oh, she just spells it out. Okay. There's a ton of scenes like this in Halloween Ends where they feel the need to explain everything that's happening as if we couldn't understand on our own.
You just act like a goddamn asshole because your father treats you like one.
Yeah, we got that.
Fucking genius.
But the most obvious example of this problem is this scene where Laurie has a whole speech about how Corey's eyes have changed and he's like Michael now.
Michael's eyes in Corey.
Gordon Green loves his legacy characters to have a sixth sense about evil.
We've met before.
It's already kind of obvious. The whole point of this movie is about Corey transforming into something evil. Everyone already got it, but still, the scene is pretty okay. It shows a point of no return for Corey, who's really starting to turn to the dark side. Okay, that's fine. But then, for some reason, they repeat that exact same scene with the dad of the little boy from the beginning, who pretty much says the same thing Laurie has just said to Lindsay.
And it's not him. At least not in the eyes.
Michael's eyes in Corey.
They're repeating the same information twice, and Laurie is already aware of Corey's change. So what's the purpose of putting those two scenes back to back? I don't get it. And then the dad literally spells out the main theme of the movie.
Did the town do this to him after the accident? Or was it always there?
It's like if in The Wolf of Wall Street, Leo turned to the camera and said, "Hey, this is about greed, addiction, and corruption. Do you get it?" Again, I do want to praise the originality and the exploration of pretty interesting themes, but it's like they didn't trust their audience to understand these pretty basic and simple ideas. It also doesn't help that, just like any recent Gordon Green films, the dialogue is very, very bad.
He's dead. Not dead enough.
It's the kind of dialogue that nobody can relate to because nobody talks like that.
You're that psycho babysitter.
He killed that kid, didn't he?
If I saw a guy who killed a little child, I don't think I'd be poking fun at him. Maybe that's just me though.
A psycho meets a freak show.
A psycho meets a freak show. Who talks like that? It makes it once again very difficult to get invested in the story when everyone talks like they're in a cartoon.
I'm sorry?
Had a better director helmed this third installment, I would have probably enjoyed it more, but the classic Gordon Green-isms kinda ruined it for me. Okay, Allison is back and Halloween Ends. In fact, she's one of the main characters of this film, being Corey's main love interest. Now, this might be a hot take, I don't know, but Allison was probably my favorite character in this new trilogy. I felt a lot of empathy for her. I mean, she's had quite the trauma in her life. Her grandma was a nutso, yapping about evil coming to get her, and then turns out her ominous warnings about the boogeyman ended up being true. Her dad died, her mom died, her boyfriend was an asshole, and then he died died. Her best friend was an asshole, and then he died. She suffered and lost so much over the course of these films. And then she became a badass fighter out for revenge. I really like that, but unfortunately, I feel like they dropped the ball with her character in this third film. It's not that she took a back seat and was barely developed like in Halloween Kills. No, this time they made her naive, stupid, and completely unlikable. Hey, why'd you do that? First off, kind of just a little nitpick, but she immediately falls in love with Corey. As soon as she meets him, she gives him fuck me eyes and then becomes completely obsessed with him.
I don't care about the rattle. I came to see you.
And then in the blink of an eye, they're dating and madly in love. I get that she sees and she feels the pain in him, and she relates to that.
They're just two very broken people.
And some could say it's simply love at first sight, but I would simply call it plot convenience. She's blindly in love with someone who's got so many red flags a bull would have a heart attack seeing him. If anyone should be careful about trusting people, it's Allison. She's had her trust broken so many times over this franchise that it kind of feels strange to see her lower her guard so easily. Also, although the majority of the runtime is spent exploring their growing relationship, it's hard to get invested in that relationship since whenever they're together, Corey keeps acting like a goddamn psycho.
What's going on?
Yeah, dump his ass.
I killed someone.
Leave. Just leave. What the fuck? It's just hard to believe this would happen. But then, as I thought things couldn't get any worse, they do. I mean, I didn't find the love story to be particularly believable, nor engaging, but it wasn't infuriating or anything, just kind of mediocre.
Bend over.
But then we get to the conflict with Lori. Oh god, that's where things go downhill for her character.
He is capable of real harm.
Is that what bothers you? Is it suspicion or intuition?
Wait, what? Hey, Allison, the last time your grandmother had an intuition that something bad was gonna happen, everyone you've ever loved died horribly. You'd think she could at least take a second to listen to her. This makes Allison incredibly unlikable, which is a shame. It's like she regressed. She went from growing into a mature young woman to acting like a teenage high school brat.
Because of the hysteria that you caused when I trusted you, my friends are dead. My parents are dead.
What the hell are you talking about?
What?
Tommy Doyle caused this panic with his goddamn evil dies tonight bullshit. All Lori has ever done is try to protect her family.
I am trying to protect you.
I don't want your protection.
And now you're blaming the death of everyone on her, while she's the one who kept warning you about it and you wouldn't listen? They added conflict here that is clearly forced in, because the third act is starting and we need a low point where the characters get into a fight, but that fight makes no sense. I get that the town is gossiping over this and they're looking for somebody to blame, but Allison has been there this whole time, and she should know better than anyone that this is complete nonsense. Then, lastly, we get the scene where Corey stabs himself, because if he can't have Allison, no one can. So then, of course, she comes home, sees what happened, and immediately assumes that Lori killed him. And she's very, very mad, and then she runs away. I guess Lori didn't bother trying to explain the situation. I mean, call me crazy, but maybe she could have said something like, hey, look, right next to Corey. That's Michael Myers' mask. Corey dressed up as Michael, and then he tried to kill me. Oh, really? Okay. Wow, my boyfriend was a psycho. My bad, Grandma. Problem solved. It's so stupid. I hate it. I couldn't make a video on Halloween Ends without talking about the single worst part of this movie, which is the end.
How do you want to say goodbye to these characters?
Holy shit, talk about dropping the ball. It all comes down to this. If you're gonna try to do something different, unique, and unexpected, then go ahead, but stick with it. Don't bail at the very last second just to try to please everyone, because you'll simply end up pleasing no one. As you know if you've seen the film, in the last act of Halloween Ends, or not even the last act, but the last 10 minutes, Michael randomly shows up, kills Corey, which makes this whole scene completely meaningless, and then fights Lori for a couple of minutes until he gets beat up and then thrown in a meat grinder. Somehow everyone in the town is already outside waiting for this to happen. Hey, what are y'all doing outside? Did Lori create a group chat off screen? What are you doing there? And then the movie's over. Now, if we're strictly talking about the fight scene, I found it to be ridiculous and comical. I know a lot of people liked how brutal and epic it was.
Nothing compares to this.
But to me, it was like an unintentional comedy. Breaking chairs, fighting with a frying pan, defeating Michael with the help of a microwave, dropping a fridge on him, and then Allison shows up and it's ridiculous. It's so stupid, it's straight out of a David Gordon Green movie. Yeah, I didn't really like the fight scene, but most importantly, you simply don't care about what's happening on screen. This is a battle to the death between two icons, and I felt nothing. If this movie is a love story, then this has nothing to do with the movie you're making. You're not invested at all. It's not like everything has been leading up to this. No, it happens out of nowhere. What's more, they completely mess up Laurie's character when she says this. What? What are you talking about?
Did you really think I'd kill myself?
Do it.
Do you want to die or not? We just got this super emotional scene where we all thought you were going to end your life. It was very sad and well acted. And then it turned out to be a ruse. Okay, fine. But then 10 minutes later, now you want to die?
Do it.
What?
You want to let the monster that ruined your life, the monster you've been chasing for 40 years?
40 years ago.
40 years.
You want to let him kill you? It's so stupid. Listen, I don't know who had the terrible idea of ending this film like this. I know there were countless rewrites, many different endings. Maybe this was a studio constraint. Maybe it was Gordon Green who was too scared of fan backlash. But this came out of nowhere without any proper setup, like an afterthought. And it ruins everything the movie was trying to say. The whole point of this was that evil doesn't die, it just changes shape.
But the truth is, evil doesn't die. It changes shape.
I know many people hate the scene where Corey beats Michael's ass, and it is a very silly scene.
That's an incredible sequence.
But the reason why I didn't mind Michael being a weak old fart is because the point was that anyone can be infected with evil. Michael was weak and he was gonna die alone in that sewer, but a new boogeyman was gonna take his place. It's a never-ending cycle, and a recurring theme with this franchise. Corey was the embodiment of this new evil, and then all for what? For nothing.
But the truth is, evil doesn't die.
Yeah, okay, except for the two evil people of the film that are both dead. What are you trying to say here? It's also pretty funny how, as I mentioned before, they threw in that forced conflict between Allison and Laurie. She didn't want to believe her. This was like a very important part of the plot. And then, after everything that's happened, they just immediately resolved this.
You were right about Corey. I know he killed those people.
Oh, I guess this subplot is over now. The whole drama and story revolved around this, and then it ends with, oh, by the way, you were right all along. And I learned that off screen, I guess. Okay, bye-bye. Bye forever. This was quite possibly the worst way to end Halloween Ends, because despite giving us the final battle between Laurie and Michael that we were all waiting for, there was no emotional connection to it whatsoever. And what's more, it contradicted everything the movie was saying up to this point. What was the point of the whole movie then? It was truly embarrassing. Well, this review is finally over, and now there's only one thing left for me to do. Write my memoir as a survivor of these Gordon Green Halloween movies.
So here I am, a survivor attempting to share my story.
This whole trilogy was a complete mess, with some highs and many lows.
Evil dies tonight!
There's things I like about Halloween Ends, and there's things I hate about it.
Do it.
But I'm honestly kind of glad this is all over. As much as I enjoy this silly, stupid franchise,
trick or treat, motherfucker,
I'm good with taking a break for now. We're never getting close to the quality of the original film, and that's fine. Let's just let it go. Some movies are meant to be left alone, and despite its 12 sequels, Halloween will always remain, in my heart, a simple, beautiful, low-budget movie about evil. And no sequel, no retcons, no terrible movie can ever take that away from me. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep watching horror movies. It's good for your health. Bye-bye.